right, guys, it's 2 o'clock and we've got a lot to do today, but as you know, we have a guest speaker and I'm so excited to have her. I've known Miranda for a few years. She was on my daughter's soccer team and she's basically a kick-butt runner. But it's been a couple years since we played on the same team, so I'm so excited to have her. She's going to talk and then open it up for question and answers, and if you have a question that you think about while she's talking, just jot it down so that you're prepared when we're done. All right, let's give her a hand.
Hi, I'm Miranda, and I was diagnosed with Ewing's sarcoma cancer on December 1st. So a typical 16-year-old would want a car, or their license, or like a spectacular sweet 16 birthday party. Well, how about the news that you have cancer? I was diagnosed on December 1st, which is a couple days after my 16th birthday. I was so they found the tumor on November 25th, and my birthday is November 23rd, so that's 2 days afterwards. I had a 6-inch tumor on my sacrum, and they had to use an MRI machine to find it, and I went straight from my MRI to Children's Hospital. 200 children are diagnosed with Ewing's sarcoma each year in the United States. The odds of getting Ewing's sarcoma are 3 in a million. So my journey started in April 2015. I was running track during that time, and my times just weren't as fast as they used to be. I was slowing down, and I couldn't run the times that I thought I would be able to. My 800 time in 8th grade was a 2:39, and I was running about a 2:45 and a 2:48 time freshman year. And I really didn't think much of it. I just kind of thought, oh, maybe I'm slowing down a little bit. Maybe I'm nervous for track, and maybe I'm just better at cross country. But I really just thought this was normal, and it wasn't when I look back on it. I had had an awful fall early May. I was at French Park with a couple of friends, and we were walking around. There was a tree that had fallen over, so we all decided it'd be so much fun just to walk across this tree and, kind of goof around and be teenagers. So I was walking across this tree, and I slipped, and I fell, and I landed straight on my tailbone. It's kind of one of those where you're laughing through the tears. You're like, oh, I'm so stupid, I fell, and you're like, oh, that hurts so bad. And I remember kind of limping it off and saying, you know what, I'm okay. I can get through this. And it kind of hurt on and off the next couple days. My mom noticed me limping around the house, and she asked me, hey, what's wrong? And I said, oh, I fell on my tailbone a couple days ago, and it hasn't been the same since. It's kind of hurting. So we kind of kept an eye on it, but it kept getting worse and worse and worse, to the point where I was getting up at night because it was hurting so bad. I would just kind of feel this searing pain in my back. So we decided to go to a tailbone specialist to have it fixed, and the tailbone specialist was able to fix it in July. So she moved my tailbone, so it went from 3 degrees of movement to 45 degrees of movement. So we thought that was the end-all be-all, that was the perfect fix, and that it'd be done by then and I wouldn't have to experience this pain anymore. But that wasn't the case. We took a road trip to Montana in late August, and my tailbone really started getting worse. I was up every night, 3 or 4 times a night, and I would have to walk around because of this searing pain in my back. I really wasn't sure what was going on, but I still figured it was the tailbone pain because tailbones take forever to heal. So, we're kind of watching it, and I'm taking Advil at this point. I'm taking probably 6 pills of Advil right now, trying to manage the pain. And so we then went to the tailbone specialist when we got back, and I was diagnosed with SI joint dysfunction. Our tailbone specialist told us that I should go see a local chiropractor 3 or 4 times a week to try and loosen this SI joint so that my walking will be normal and that the pain will stop. And so we started going to this chiropractor, and he was kind of helping, but the adjustments were really painful. I had gotten an x-ray at the chiropractor, and you could tell that my entire right side of my back was messed up. My spine curved to the right, and my hips were out of placement. They were leaning toward the right. but you couldn't see my tumor because x-rays don't show that, only MRIs do. So I was still in a ton of pain, and marching band had started in late August, and we were practicing for the football games. And we had to do all these weird twists, like turn our body this way and then turn our feet the other way. And so we were doing these really weird twists, and it was completely messing with my lower back, and I was starting to experience more and more pain. So when school started, I was taking 12 Advil a day. I counted, and I was taking 12 Advil, so I was taking 2 Advil or 3 Advil at a time to try and manage the pain so I could get through a day of school. I was still seeing the chiropractor, but things really weren't working out. And I was still waking up 4 times a night to try and walk around and ease the pain. I wasn't getting sleep. I was crashing around 7:30 at night because I was so exhausted from being in so much pain. And I was waking up and just not getting enough sleep, so I was tired during school. And during this entire process, I was still running cross country. I was running 8 miles a day with all this, and I was trying to be on the varsity squad. I had been training all summer, and I had been working really hard, and I was so close to being able to be on the varsity team because only 7 people are able to be varsity runners, and I was number 15-ish, and I was hoping that I could keep on improving and be able to race with the varsity. But my times in cross country were just getting worse and worse. I was barely able to keep like a 22:30, which was the lettering time. And in previous years, I had been able to letter really easily, and I wasn't able to letter at all this year. However, despite everything, at the end I ended up lettering. I was 2 seconds away, and my coach had told me, despite everything, he said, "You earned this letter, I'm not giving it to you." So I was able to letter, so that was a really exciting moment for me. But during the cross-country season, I kept telling my friends, like, hey, my back's hurting, but nobody really thought much of it. They just kind of thought, oh, it's just simple back pain, you're an athlete. Athletes are always injured. And so nobody really believed me when I told them how much it was hurting. And so that's the trip in Montana. And the hardest part about this entire journey has been kind of losing my hair and losing my eyebrows, because I was in love with my hair. I loved the waves and the goldenness of it, and I really miss being able to brush my hair. And a couple days ago, I counted and I realized I had lost my last eyelashes on my left eye, and I have 3 eyelashes on my top eyelid. And that was a really hard moment for me, because when I had first started losing my hair, I had gotten it cut to a pixie cut, and it was really hard for me because my hair would come out in my food, and it would just come out in clumps, and it was really hard. But I had an optimistic attitude, and I kind of looked at it as leaving a little part of me everywhere I went. So, I would go to the store, and I would kind of brush my hair out, and some of it would fall on the ground. I'd be like, oh, there's a little part of me in that store. And so I tried to remain optimistic about that. But, yeah, so that's kind of
beautiful hair. How many think she has beautiful hair?
And so that was the last race I had run on October 31st. I wanted to prove to myself that despite all of my injuries and how, my calf had started becoming really tight because my tumor was pressing against the nerves up in my spine. So I was getting some searing pain in my calf, and it had become really tight. But I still wanted to prove to myself that I was a strong athlete and I could run through back pain. So that was the last time I run, and that was on October 31st. So we went in for the MRI on November 25th because my symptoms had started to get worse. I couldn't feel my left foot, so if I went to itch the bottom of my foot, I wouldn't be able to feel my finger on my foot, and my hamstring started going numb. I would itch my hamstring, and I still wouldn't be able to feel the itching sensation. And that's kind of when I started realizing that this was a problem and this wasn't normal. I was going to the bathroom before class, during class, and after class because I started losing control of my bladder, and it was an awful time, and I didn't realize how like obsessed with making sure I went to the bathroom at a certain time I was becoming, and it was just an awful experience, and it was kind of embarrassing because I kept telling my friends, like, I think I'm losing control of my bladder, and they'd kind of just shake it off, like, oh, you're probably exaggerating, or you're drinking too much water. And so we went in for the MRI on November 25th, and the MRI lady was super nice to me. She told me if I wanted, I could take 2 snacks, and she said, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving, and good luck. And so when I got in the car with my mom, I looked at her and I said, good luck. What did she mean by good luck? Like, you know, usually when you hear good luck, that means there's going to be a long haul in front of you and there's a problem. And so I went straight to the neurologist because we had been planning this meeting with him so we could find out why my hamstring and why my foot was numb. And at the neurologist, we received the call because the MRI radiologist, it was a reading call. So as soon as they read the MRI scans, they would call us and then tell us the results. And so the neurologist took the call and he left the room for a little bit. And when he came back, he kind of sat down and he looked at me and he said, there's no easy way for me to tell you this, but we found a 6-inch tumor at the base of your spine. And I started hyperventilating and freaking out. My mom and the neurologist had to calm me down. And I called my best friend, and she was on vacation at the time because it was Thanksgiving break. And she said, you know, it's going to be okay. You know, we're all here for you. And then I went straight from the neurologist to the children's hospital where I was in the pediatric intensive care unit. And so all my friends came and visited me in the PICU. I had a misdiagnosis at first. They thought I had just this abnormal tumor growth that wasn't cancerous. And so that's kind of why I was smiling and happy there, is because we all didn't think I had cancer there, and we just thought it was this abnormal growth tumor. And this tumor is like, it's really rare because there's only 1 case a year. And they thought I was the case, but it wasn't the case. The oncologist hadn't weighed in yet on my tumor, and she said, you know, I really don't think it's what you think it is. I think this is cancer. And so they officially diagnosed me on December 1st with Ewing sarcoma. And I went straight into surgery. I was intubated for 3 days. So they had a feeding tube down my throat, and I was knocked out pretty much for 3 days, where they did a bone marrow surgery and then they put a port in. And so this is a port. You can kind of see the scar, but it's kind of a double port. It looks like this, and they have to access you with a 1-inch needle each time you go in, so they can administer the chemo, and if you need a transfusion and any other kind of drugs and if you need fluids, they all give it to you through your port. So I got that surgery done, and then I got a bone marrow aspiration to see if my cancer had spread to my bone marrow, which thankfully it hadn't. The only place it had spread was to my lungs, is what they told me. And so I was still in an incredible amount of pain. So I was on some pretty high-dose pain meds. One of the pain meds I was on was ketamine, and ketamine is a hallucinogen. And usually only adults have hallucinations if they're on ketamine, and kids don't. But I had a really bad reaction to ketamine. I hallucinated for 32 hours, and they're not really pleasant hallucinations. It started with just me hearing music in the hallway and telling my nurse and my mom, hey, what's that music in the hallway? You know, do you hear that? And they kind of looked at me and said, no. And then I kind of heard like drumming, and then I would hear mumbling, and it really wasn't English. It was kind of scary mumbling. Like, I remember asking my nurse to say the Lord's Prayer because the mumbling was getting louder, and it was kind of coming from the corner. And then I would see shadow figures running in and out of my room and in front of my bed. And then I would see shadow figures standing above me and kind of reaching into me. And I remember being absolutely terrified because I remember knowing that, you know, what I'm seeing isn't normal, but I'm still seeing it. And so I was awake for 32 hours, and the next night I really couldn't sleep at all because I didn't want to close my eyes because I was so terrified. And they started me on my chemo regimen right away. My chemo regimen is 2 days of chemo, 12 days of rest, 5 days of chemo, 9 days of rest. I have 14 rounds of chemo and I've completed 10 of 14, so I have 10 weeks of chemo left, and then I'm done. I had to do radiation on my back. I had 31 rounds of radiation down at the Mayo Center in Rochester, and we had to drive down every day for 6 weeks. And I didn't miss a day, and it was consistently every day. My back has this awful radiation burn. It's red and raw, and it's probably got to be about this size. And I have to go through this special process to treat it every day. And when I was getting radiation, I had to lay on my back, and it was just this awful burning sensation, and it really hurt. And so I feel like this has changed me as a person, just physically a lot, because I can't go up the stairs without hearing my heartbeat in my eardrums. I get exhausted walking down the stairs in the morning. I usually don't leave the couch during the day just because I'm too tired to do anything else. I can't hang out with my friends and go places just because I'm too exhausted. And physically, I'm just in kind of a lot of constant pain with my back. I'm not able to do anything. I can't stretch in the morning. It hurts for me to roll over in bed because if I rub my back wrong, it just sends searing pain up my spine, and I can feel my back burning. I can't run anymore. I used to be able to run 8 miles a day. I can barely walk around without getting exhausted, and it's just kind of really disheartening because I miss being the athlete I was. I loved doing anything physical. I loved eating healthy. I loved lifting weights, and I can't do any of that anymore just because I'm so exhausted from all the chemo and all the radiation. And academically, I really miss school. I can't go to school anymore. I can't see all my friends during class, and I have to take all these online classes. The online classes are pretty hard because I can't ask any questions from the teachers, and the material is pretty confusing, and the online classes are really boring compared to normal school. I really miss doing homework and interacting with people during school, and I'm really missing the whole social aspect of school right now because I feel so isolated during treatment because a lot of people don't know what's going on in my life, and it's really sad, and I miss being a normal kid. And spiritually, I feel like this has affected me. I feel like it's only made me stronger in my spiritual faith because I believe everything happens for a reason. And I feel like the reason I got cancer is to help raise awareness for childhood cancer and for the lack of funding. Only 4% of the National Cancer Institution budget goes to childhood cancer. The other 96% goes to adult cancers. And in the past 30 years, only 3 drugs have been tested and approved for childhood cancer, while so many more have been for adult cancer. And I feel like childhood cancer needs to get the awareness it deserves because so many people, like childhood cancer isn't rare. Shark attacks are rare. Childhood cancer isn't. 7 people are diagnosed each day, and 46 are diagnosed worldwide, and people die each day of childhood cancer, and childhood cancer doesn't get the funding it deserves. And socially, for this entire process, I feel like I'm missing out on so many things. I don't get to hang out with my friends as often as I'd like. My 2 best friends have grown closer with each other, and I kind of feel like a third wheel in their relationship right now. I miss seeing everybody from school. Even this random girl from science class, I would always see her every day, and I miss just kind of that normalcy, just that routine of everything, because my days, I don't have a routine anymore. It's kind of Like, I have to live minute to minute, day by day. Sometimes I have an awful morning, but a good afternoon, and sometimes I'll have an awful day. Like, just yesterday, I was in the hospital because I had a fever, and if you spike a fever over 101.5, you have to go in and get antibiotics. And I've spent 2 of the last 3 weeks in the hospital. I got chemo for one of the 5 days, and then for the other one, I had a 103 fever, and I was in the hospital for 6 days, and I felt awful for those entire 6 days, and I couldn't do any schoolwork. I couldn't see any friends. I was just isolated in the hospital, and I feel like it's just been super hard for me because I feel like I'm missing out on so much of life because everybody else's life is carrying on while mine's stuck on pause while I'm going through this entire process. And so I have recently teamed up with the Truth 365 and have become a national spokesperson for children fighting cancer. And I am trying to raise awareness to show people that childhood cancer really doesn't have the funds it deserves and that something needs to change. So here are a few of the pictures. And so this is the video I made for the Truth 365.
This is always the volume at the bottom.
This is our spring break week, and I should be on a cruise right now, but we had to cancel. I was diagnosed with childhood cancer a few months ago and have been undergoing treatment ever since. Instead of getting a nice tan on the beach, I'm stuck with a radiation burn. Please share this video and help raise awareness for childhood cancer, and also visit thetruth365.org to join the movement. I recorded this video about my spring break because I want people to see how awful my radiation burns are and realize that this journey isn't a cakewalk. It's so difficult fighting cancer each and every day, and I don't think a lot of people see that because a lot of people see me as just the smiling bald kid going through cancer, and they might instantly assume that just since I'm smiling, it's easy and I'm happy about it. And I want people to see the red rawness of my back and realize that it's a struggle, and you know, it's hard to sometimes get through a day and not break down, or you know what, it's painful that I have to go through radiation and sit there for about an hour and a half every day on my burning back and get radiation done. I want people to see this isn't easy, it's difficult, and it's a process. And so this is one of the photo shoots I did with the Truth 365 owner. And I really like this picture because I feel strong and powerful. And I feel like this picture shows that I can beat cancer and that I will beat cancer. And it just, every time I look at it, I feel empowered, and it kind of gives me a sense of hope and power, and that I can get through this and I will get through this. This is the other one. We did a couple photo shoots that were a little bit edgy to try and raise awareness. So the police officer was actually on our soccer team. It's one of my soccer teammates' dad. He works for the Plymouth Police Department, so he helped us out with this photo shoot. And it's kind of a play on the Miranda rights. So it says she has the right to remain vocal. Anything she says can and will be used against childhood cancer. So it kind of just gives you a different perspective on childhood cancer, that really we're not all the smiling bald kids you see. You know, we kind of each have our own individual journeys, and that we each deserve our own recognition, and that people should know that this process really isn't easy, and a lot of people pretty much know nothing about what it's like going through cancer treatments. And I would like to thank you guys for allowing me to come here and speak in front of you and share my story. And if you guys have any questions, I would love to answer any of them.
life and death?
My views of life and death have completely changed. I've kind of accepted the fact that if it was like my journey to die, I would kind of accepted that, and I was okay with it, and I was at peace because I know God will protect me, and what happens is supposed to happen, and I've kind of learned to accept death into my life because that's a possibility when you have cancer. It's just kind of learning to accept the fact that you might die. So
How has it changed how you view life?
And
It's very full of life right now.
yes, I view life differently as well. I kind of realized after I got cancer how much I really want to live and how much more I want to do. And it's kind of taught me to change my priorities, like to put family and friends before pretty much everything else, and to make sure you're having fun with life, because at a moment's notice, everything you know could be ripped away from you and you could be plunged into a world where you know nothing and you're kind of just stuck going through treatment and your world's on pause. And I've kind of realized that there's so much more I want to do. So it's really changed my view on life to value life more than I should have and never take anything for granted. Like going to school and doing homework, I'll never take for granted again.
Other questions?
Yeah.
We're studying in psychology about people's personality and their traits. What personality traits do you think have helped you with this battle with cancer?
Being optimistic and being able to find the bright side in anything has really helped me, because I've learned that despite everything going on, if you can find one positive thing a day, that'll help with everything. And if you focus on that one positive thing, it'll get you through the day. And that's really helped me through this entire process, because there's so much I can be sad about and there's so much I can complain about. But if I focus on this one happy thing, it'll help get me through this entire process. Yeah.
You said that only 1% of money goes to child cancer. Do you know any way that I can donate directly to child cancer?
One way you could help is by raising awareness and just kind of telling people about this. And you can go to the truth365.org and kind of read through there to learn more about it. But that's kind of one of the problems, is there isn't necessarily a direct way to donate. But if you go to the truth365.org, there's some instructions there that'll help.
Miranda, what is that organization out of? Is it?
It's out of Washington, D.C. They have a national event each year called Cure Fest. It takes place in September, like September 17th and 18th. And I'm going there and I'm going to speak in front of like thousands and thousands of people.
So this is good.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're going to do a march on Capitol Hill, and we're going to try and raise more awareness and have people realize that, the true lack of funding there is, and that we need to increase the funding for childhood cancer.
How did you get involved with the organization? Like, how did you get in contact with them?
We got in contact by someone named Ann White. Her son died of a brain tumor, and he was only about 7 or 8 years old, and he was in our school district. And so at our local fundraiser, she came and she told me, she's like, hey, I have this organization I think you'd like, because we started talking about the Truth 365, and I said, is there any way I can get involved? This sounds amazing. I really want to make a difference. And what's so unique about my experience with the Truth 365 is they've never had a kid going through cancer work for them before. It's usually kids who've gone through cancer and have had time to process what's going on, and years afterwards then come to the Truth 365 and say, I want to share my story, but what's different with me is I'm going through treatment right now, so people can really kind of relate to what it's like to go through treatment. So that's why I feel like I'm such a success for the Truth 365, is people can then see what it's like to go through cancer.
So if you had not fallen on your tailbone, did the doctor tell you maybe like some symptoms you could have watched out for that could have pinpointed to
Yeah.
you having that tumor?
So I've kind of thought about that a lot, and I've kind of decided that had I not fallen, I really wouldn't have known kind of why I was having this back pain, and we wouldn't have investigated it as much, and I probably would have gone a lot longer without realizing that there was a true problem. Because with Ewing sarcoma, it takes about 9 months to diagnose, roughly, and I feel like had I not fallen on my tailbone and just kind of gone about living life, I don't know what would have happened. I don't think I necessarily would have died of cancer, but I feel like I would have gone a lot longer without it being diagnosed, and the treatment wouldn't have been as effective as it is now, and that, you know, there's a possibility I could have died, and I kind of look back and look at that fall on my tailbone as almost a blessing in disguise, because it helped pinpoint what was actually wrong with me, and it led to my diagnosis. So. Yeah.
How has this experience been beneficial to you and your family, like the family dynamic, like your relationships with your family?
I feel like it's brought us all a lot closer, and just kind of we've been able to talk more openly about things, and it's helped my relationship with my mom a lot, because she comes in with me to the hospital and she stays with me every night, and she kind of just helps me through the rough times, and she's kind of like my solid rock, and I can count on her for anything, so it's really brought us closer together.
Do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have a younger brother who's 13. He kind of deals with it as kind of not really being there. He kind of knows what's going on, but he doesn't fully involve himself. He kind of likes to keep his distance, but I can tell he cares, because when I was in the PICU and I hadn't seen him for roughly 3 weeks the first time I saw him, I started crying and he started crying as well. So I can tell he cares, but he tries not to fully involve himself. And I don't blame him. It just kind of seems like a lot of work, and he
Hard for him to see better.
yeah, because he kind of feels left out a lot, because my parents are always busy taking care of me, and he kind of feels like maybe he's not as important as me, but it's kind of rough for all of us, but we're getting through it, so. Yeah.
You said you had 10 weeks of treatment left?
Yeah.
So how many days do you do the chemo out of the treatment then?
Okay, so I just did my 1-day chemo because we dropped off one of the chemo drugs. The chemo drug I just stopped taking was called doxorubicin, and it's basically a red chemo drug that they inject into you. So you can imagine this red substance going into you, but it's not blood. So it's kind of concerning, but right now I'm on my 12 days of break, and then I go back in for 5 days of chemo, and then I have 9 days of rest and break. Then I go back in for 2 days, and so I basically have 2 more 5 days, and then 2 more 2 days left, and then I'm done. So I'm really excited.
When will you be done then, by June, or how will it?
Yeah,
Like,
I'm hoping by June, early June, if I can stay on schedule and not get any delays, because my counts are too low.
so then what do you want to do for the summer?
Have fun.
Just do fun stuff with your friends?
Yeah, pretty much.
No school?
No school, just kind of be able to be free, drive around and do whatever I want when I want, and kind of be able to control something, because so much of this process I have no control over. So
Is the treatment working?
yeah. My tumor is now almost immeasurable, and it's pretty much shrunk to I'm really happy, because the doctors say that I've responded pretty much the best way I can. The radiation probably, I haven't had scans yet to see the effects of the radiation, but they did a boost radiation on what's left of my tumor, so hopefully when I get the scans, it's all gone, but when I had my scans a couple months ago, it showed that everything was dead and my cancer is no longer spreading, and that the cancer that was in my lungs is like 99.9% gone. So there's only like one tiny spot left. So I get radiation on my lungs at the end of all this, and then I'm done. So.
Why did they not do it?
They couldn't take the tumor out because it was so big, it was pressing against all my nerves, and they were scared that if they made one wrong move and they hit the nerves, that I'd have permanent nerve damage, and I wouldn't be able to walk normally, and I wouldn't be able to go to the bathroom properly, and they were just scared that there were so many risks involved that they decided that radiation and chemo would be the way to go.
Are there any more questions? I feel like there's more.
What is for, any cancer, do you know like what the probability of it, is it like to come back or?
Yeah. So the prognosis is kind of a touchy subject just because, each person has their own individual story. Like, basically for these studies, you only see them as a number, and so the prognosis for Ewing's sarcoma is 30% if you're over 15 years old. And so I when I first Googled it, I was terrified. And the doctors looked at me and said, you're a person, you're not just a number. This prognosis rate isn't what you should consider and think about, because it doesn't take into consideration how well the person responds to chemo, or what kind of treatment they're going under, or how big their tumor is and how much it's spread. So there's a lot to take into consideration, but it's kind of scary to think about that I had a 30% chance of surviving, according to Google.
Yeah. Google is not the end all, is it?
Yeah, so.
I want you to tell them what you want to be when you grow up.
Oh, okay. So I've decided that I really want to go into nursing and become a nurse practitioner and work with other kids who have cancer, because I feel like I can bring a whole different aspect to the doctor, because I can relate to the patient. Because sometimes I feel like doctors kind of just can't understand exactly what it's like to be a patient and go through cancer. And I feel like I can bring that different aspect into it and help the patient feel more confident and help families out, because I've been through the process. And I really want to give back to the cancer community, because the nurses I've had have been so helpful, and they've helped me remain positive and keep a smile on my face. And I want to help other kids going through cancer have the same experience as I did.
There's a lot of future nurses in here.
Oh, really?
Any tips of advice or things like that that have heard from your nurses that you've had experience with, like things you've enjoyed or?
I really like it when the nurses kind of can find something that you both relate to. And so I really like running, and a lot of my nurses are runners. And so they kind of helped me feel more confident and help kind of gain my trust by bringing out that similarity. One of my nurses just ran the Boston Marathon on Monday, and she let me kind of follow her bib number so I could see her pace and see what she was running. And she kind of just was really sweet and really nice, and she's been there for me kind of since day one. And I think if you stick with the patient, and I really like it when I get the same nurses and see if you can get the same patient again, and kind of just teach them, help them out, and kind of treat them as more of a person instead of a number, and think of them, hey, if this were me or if this were my kid, how would I want to treat them and make sure they get the best care possible, and just kind of treat them really well, I'd say. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a crazy mom back here. Do you do a blog or anything where if we wanted to, we could follow your story?
Yeah, I have a Caring Bridge. You can just search me, Miranda Mead.
Okay. Cool.
Kind of on a similar vein, so it's awesome that you want to give back to the cancer community, but I feel like we have such a charmed life in America. Have you given any thought to bringing your experience like you are right now to high school and college kids who haven't experienced that? Because I feel like you've learned and grown so much. You have you have just an old, wizened, like near-death encounter experience and perspective that most kids don't get. Have you thought about ways you can kind of bring that to general society as well?
Yeah, I feel like working with the True 365 can really help accomplish that, because they can help reach people that really are clueless about this other side. And I feel like if I work with them and kind of just help raise awareness in general, that people will begin to realize just the lack of or just how bad the lack of funding is and how we need to increase the funding. And I feel like working with them and speaking at other events like this can help increase awareness and help people realize that a change must be made. Yeah.
So that, but then also I guess what I want to do is be a counselor, and what I see in you is more than just awareness of cancer, but just a maturity and a different perspective on life.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is I would love to see you as like a motivational speaker or as a mentor, not just to cancer students and not just talking about cancer, but just talking to normal people about life, because I feel like you know things about life that others don't. So I would just say thank you, first of all, for being here and sharing this, but then also just to know that you have something special because of this experience that goes beyond just cancer awareness and sharing that side of your story, that I think is cool and would be fun to not fun, but beneficial to share with the rest of the world.
It'd be cool to explore that side, kind of just being a motivational speaker and teaching people how to have a different outlook on life and to really value life itself. I think that would be a great thing to explore. So thank you for that.
Well, that's a good segue into an activity that we had planned. So if you would take out your piece of paper now that we talked about, and they're going to write you a message. And the message is simply, what did you glean? What would you like to say to her? Maybe what part of her message was inspiring, or if you want to say something else, we aren't going to read them out loud. They're just going to go to her. Let's give her a hand while we do that. I'll put her name up here so you spell it right. I think I've been spelling it wrong all these years. There's an E at the end of Mead. There's not? No, there is in your mom's email though. Isn't it? It's not? Did you get my emails?
Maybe not, I don't know.
I don't know if you are open to this, I'm fully putting you on the spot, but we do have her mom here, and we are talking lifespan. I mean, we talked about parenting. I mean, we talked about the sperm and the egg. I mean, we've covered kind of the whole gamut. Is there anything that you would say or add to what Miranda said from a mom perspective?
I think from a mom's perspective, I'm lucky she's my kid because she is so positive through this, and she is always just head down, let's get it done. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed and tired. And I'm not going through the treatments, and she is the one that cheerleads for all of us. And she just keeps plugging away, and she doesn't complain, and she just, that hurt. It would be much harder for those of us around her if she were always down and always sad. And she just isn't. I mean, she looks at everything as an opportunity. She's excited about life, and she just keeps moving. And she knows that this is a battle, and it's a big battle, and it's an uphill battle. But she has chosen to face it with dignity and courage. And I would like to say I'm proud, and I had something to do with that. But it's just who she is. I mean, she's been amazing.
We really thank you for coming and offering us the perspective, because we couldn't have it if you wouldn't be here. Because it's one thing to talk about things academically and from a theory standpoint, and it's so much different, as you would, I'm sure, agree, to hear it from somebody who's going through it, whatever that is. I mean, we all have our story, right? But we really appreciate it. So if you want to rip your note out, you can bring them on up here. We'll take a break. And because I've got people here from other classes that are going to need to leave, unless you want to stay for lifespan. But otherwise, we'll take a 10-minute break, and when we come back, we'll share our articles. So you can come on up and bring Miranda your notes.
after.